Only need one take. All we need is one take.
Welcome to Disrupt. Well, welcome to Disrupt. Wait, be.
Take a beat.
Welcome to Disruptors in the Culture. I am one of your co-hosts, Amira Smith. I'm here with my very amazing co-host, Joshua Meekins. And Josh, do you want to do the pleasure of interrupting our awesome guest today?
Yeah, our guest today is a friend of mine, a coworker of mine, a fantastic individual who leads by example and makes a big change in his community. I've known him. I've known you for what, a year now, maybe.
It's been more than a year,
Has it
Josh.
really?
Dude, it started like 2017, so we're going on probably about close to 3.
2020. Oh
Yeah.
my God! All right, 3 years. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this man, he probably also needs no introduction. His name is Darrell Edmonds. He is the executive director of Friday is Tie Day down in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and I want him to talk about a little bit about his program and tell us a little bit about what's going on. Actually, tell us about you first.
All right,
Tell us
about
Darrell
me.
Edmonds. You can
About
probably tell
me.
yourself better than I can.
Okay, so I live and breathe to change the world, right?
Okay,
So
that's a strong statement. I like that.
Yeah, I like to make it real strong because I want people to know who they're introducing, like who they're meeting from the jump. So I always use that even in interviews, like when I'm like interviewing for jobs. I want them to know how crazy I am.
Yeah.
So if you want that kind of energy, then that's what I'm bringing to the table.
Okay.
I live and
We
breathe to
want
change the
energy on
world, right?
podcast, for sure.
Yeah. So I'm driven by purpose and passion. I think every life has a purpose, and to help find that purpose, you're giving things you're passionate about. And when I say passion, I mean in its true sense, like you're willing to suffer for.
Absolutely.
So things that I do, and this work we talk about with Friday's Tie Day, I don't see it as suffering, but I'm willing to, you know, so we make sacrifices to make it happen. So all that to say, like, I'm a man that loves his family and loves to work and serve in his community. I got all the degrees and everything, and that's not important at this point.
Give us
Well,
your
yeah,
background.
that's-
Give us some of that. All
Well,
right.
I mean,
so,
I think we would like to know your degrees that you
all
have.
right. So I have an undergraduate degree from the University of Delaware.
Okay.
And a graduate degree. I have a master's of science in nonprofit management.
Love it.
Very
So
important.
it was intentional with that degree to be this person, to do the work that I'm doing now. So I'm a father. I love to talk about that.
Hey,
I have
father,
three beautiful girls,
love to
a
see
lovely wife, right? So that drives a lot of what I do.
Shout out to the wife on the podcast.
Shout out to my wife, J9, Janine. She probably listening at some point. I love you, baby.
I know you gotta make sure you give this.
Right, she gonna be listening. But 3 daughters, 16, 10, and soon to be 4.
Yeah.
Right. So that's like first, right? That's home.
Yeah,
that's home base. But then everything else kind of like comes from my excess. They get all my essence, right? They get all of who I am. And if I'm fortunate enough to fuel myself up and I have some excess, that's what I give to my community. And that's where Friday is Tie Day was born out of.
Got it.
Right, so Friday is Tie Day was born out of a need that I saw working in communities in southern New Jersey. So we're not in like any urban center. Much of our communities are suburban. Schools are actually, pretty good, right? They have their issues, but, they're decent schools. There's like, respectable graduation rates, all those things that we look for as indicators. But I often saw lack when it came to working with young men of color.
Okay.
And it was on like both sides of the coin, right? So the school had their responsibility in lowering their expectations.
Yeah.
Whether they knew it or not, there was like this unconscious like lowering of the bar.
Okay.
And, I say all the time, and my friend Uriah says all the time, like everybody lives up to low expectations.
Got you.
Right? That's easy,
Yeah.
right?
Real quick, was there a difference in the community that you're growing up in now and how I guess maybe you were raised to what you see going on? Was that like a catalyst?
Yeah, so
Part of
that
this?
was a huge part of why I started it, right? I realized in my upbringing, number one, I had an amazing father,
Okay.
right? He was like stalwart in our community, and he was like a rock in our family, right? So I had that like huge foundation. But I also had, I was surrounded in the community, in the neighborhood. Like we live in a neighborhood. There's 7 houses, 6 of them are blood relatives,
Nice.
right? So I had uncles, grandparents, relatives that like they were examples, right? I didn't have far to look to find examples of what it meant to be a man.
Okay.
They were all around me and they were active in my life, right? So I had my father, who, both of my parents had graduate degrees and they worked in the community. My dad serves on many boards in the community for the health system, for the community college. Very well known. He served 20 years as the school board president in our community. My mother served many years as the PTA president. So we had that. I had an uncle who was also a deacon in the church, who served as a councilman in our community, who lived across the street. My grandfather, who was just one of them old school, jack of all trades. If it needed to be done, he could do it. Electricianship, carpentry, plumbing, cooking, you name it, hunting. He could do it all, because that's how we had to live to survive in this upbringing. My neighbors were men Mr. Goodrum, who was a power lifter, right? So he served on the school board alongside of my dad, but was this just burly, strong dude who would have these trophies from, lifting insane amounts of weight. And for little kids, we would see these trophies of these huge power lifters with things 800 and 1,000 pounds on them. So these dudes weren't to be fooled with, right? We were given a chance to be kids because we didn't have to be men, because we knew who a man was, right? It wasn't so we stayed in our place because we knew what our place was, and they gave us a place to grow and explore with love and with support. So I had that, right? So I would see a lot of my friends that I grew up with were probably either more talented or just as gifted as me athletically. I knew they were just as smart or different things, but I was the one that got the opportunities. Right? I was the one that of my graduating, and I think about my community, we had a K through 8 school, and then we went to a high school that was regional, right? So my community, my K through 8 school, we might have had 50 people in our graduating 8th grade class. And I can't really think of too many that went to college. I really can't think of too many that finished. Okay. Right? I can't name them. If I probably go and, scour the webs, look at Facebook, I can see, oh, okay, he got his degree later on, this, that, and the other. But it just wasn't a common thing. But I know dudes in my community who were way more athletic than me, way more talented. But things just kind of caught them up, life caught them up. They got drawn to the streets or other things real early.
So for a little reference, where exactly did you grow up?
All right, so I grew up in southern New Jersey. It's a real small town called Egg Harbor City.
Oh,
okay.
Egg Harbor Township. Is it
Egg Harbor Township is next door, right?
Okay.
So I got young in my program from Egg Harbor Township, but Egg Harbor City is actually smaller, much smaller. And truthfully, in a lower socioeconomic bracket. Okay. Right. So
when we're looking at the way you were brought up, surrounded by a lot of family, and were you more of an outlier as opposed to the neighborhood that you were in?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So most guys didn't have fathers at home from where you come from.
Yeah.
To have
I would say
examples.
that. Yeah. And definitely not. Definitely not in the way that I had it.
I see. Yeah.
Most didn't. And most didn't have that village, that we always talk about, that it takes to raise a child. Yes, it does. I absolutely had it.
Wow.
I absolutely had it.
Wow.
In every way. So my father was there, super dope figure, but my father never took me to football practice because he was busy working, serving, and doing things in the community. So Mr. Goodrum got us there. Wow. We were all musicians. We had a little family music group that they gospel and R&B. My Uncle Bill was the head of that stuff. He was our Joe Jackson, not in any negative way, right? But he did the music stuff. My Aunt Linda made sure we got to Sunday school and Vacation Bible School. Yeah. Because my mom and dad were always there serving at the early service and the 11th service, right? So she would make sure we got to Sunday school. So it was truly a village. My parents did a lot, but we all worked together to make sure the kids got to every little activity and thing. So it was truly
multi-generational. Yeah. Not living, but did you guys live in the same home?
No, but we called it the compound.
Same community, the same block.
Yeah. It's not even a real block because it was a country street.
Yeah. Right? But it was still you guys had roots and there was family surrounded. So there was someone to watch the kids.
Always.
Wow.
Always.
So what happened after I know your college story, but what happened after you graduated high school and kind of left that community?
Yeah.
I know that you talk about that transition a lot.
Yeah, so that was crazy, right? So I had tons of support, right? So then I'm thrust. I got a full scholarship to go to University of Delaware to play football. So I went there. I'm thrown on this campus, at to kind of figure life out for myself, right? So I had tons of rules as a kid, tons of rules and tons of eyes watching if I was breaking rules, right? Mm-hmm. And then you're thrown on the campus, and then you're thrown on the campus at a PWI. So I have to explain why that's unique for me because everyone in my family, predominantly white institution, because everyone in my family went to HBCU, which is a historically black college university, right? Yeah. So the experience they had was different from me. I'm a first generation PWI, right? Everybody else went to HBCU, so that was also like my frame of reference for college.
Yeah.
Right. The homecoming experience, the bands, the thing, but also just the understanding is like there's male dorms and female dorms, and there's vegetation and there's all that stuff. But then when you're thrown on a campus at a PWI where you're on a co-ed floor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I remember like when we had that realization, and my dad and mama walking me into my dorm, my dad's looking, he's like, girl, on his floor, right? He's look, and like he didn't say nothing to me, but I think he knew like what the challenges were going to be, right?
But co-ed dorm floors?
Yes,
or?
I had female neighbors on both sides.
Okay, yeah.
So it wasn't like,
because I went to a PWI for a semester,
yeah.
and we had a co-ed dorm, but it's just, you know, the floors, sides of floors, I barely.
Yeah, so like one side was male, one side. See, yeah, so there was like a male bathroom on that side, but that whole side of the floor was mixed, you know.
Wow,
So it'd be
yeah.
like a room with two girls, a room with two guys, a room with two girls, like on the same side. So it was just a totally different experience for me, right? Coming from a very close knit, very strict home to where you're thrown on this college campus with, you know, thousands of kids from all over the country who were raised different than you,
Yeah.
right? So that was the first time I really saw any drug use.
Yeah.
Right? Like that just didn't go on in my family. My family rarely even drank. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So that was the first time I saw any type of abuse or things like that. And just the exposure. So that was a huge adjustment for me. Right. Thankfully though, I had that strong foundation there. I knew where to kind of like pull myself back into those places where I was safe.
Yeah.
And those things that kind of covered me and protected me.
Okay.
So, you know, I pulled on my faith. I pulled on, you know, just some things that I knew I needed to, some places I needed to be grounded.
Yeah.
So with that, so you then notice that you have this village for you that kind of helps you kind of develop into the man that you are now. Then you take that and you're now present day, you're realizing, okay, that village doesn't exist anymore, right? And I'm assuming Pop's idea of what Friday is Tie-Day?
Yeah, so the first stage of Friday is Tie-Day was like really organic.
Okay.
You know, I was working with a young man.
Well, I think we're jumping the gun. Like, when did you feel it was needed? Like, what was your exposure to the problem that you said, wait, there's a problem, and I feel like I need to create something to solve it?
So I was actually working in a high school. I was a director of a teen site, like a teen center. So we did social services and mental health counseling in a building on the high school campus.
Okay.
So we were doing amazing work, right? I had a great team, great people around me. We were doing amazing work. But I think my biggest concern when it came to building Friday is Tie-Day, I would see a lot of kids graduate, especially young men of color. And like, they were good kids in high school, right? I would have no problem having them over my house around my children. But they would graduate with really no focus.
Yeah.
No real goals. It was kind of like we finished that. Maybe they went away to college for a semester and got, you know, had that shock and kind of came home or ran into financial issues. So they're just kind of hanging around.
Yeah.
And, you know, for the first part of it, it's not too bad. They find a little job, get a little something, then that job disappears, and it's the other job. But then you start seeing, like, you're reading the paper, you're like, oh, man, so-and-so got caught up. You know what I mean? So-and-so got arrested, so-and-so like this. And I'll never forget one student in particular, man. I met with him maybe a couple weeks before high school graduation. He came, he sat across from me at my desk. And you could see that nervous look on his face, like, I'm getting ready to graduate. I don't know what's next. So I literally walked through the woods, because the community college wasn't far from where we are. I walked through the woods to take him to the community college, right, to try to get him started on the process. But it was like a few weeks left, so he kind of had to finish everything on his own. I mean, nice kid, charming, handsome, really good athlete, about 6'2", you know, like, good kid. And this was maybe 4 years ago. I came across his mugshot.
Wow.
Murder charge.
Wow.
And I'm looking at this kid, and it's this young man now, and I'm like, this was not him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how did we as a community fail him? Like, that's what I saw. I didn't know where he go wrong, because it wasn't that.
Yeah.
It was like, what did we miss as a community? Where a kid that was a good kid ends up in this place.
Yeah.
So that was the thing that really made me, because when Friday's Tie-Day started, it was really organic. It was like, you know, kids wanted to wear ties. I showed them how to do it, and I wanted to be able to continue to tie it. So it's like, just start wearing them on Fridays. We'll do something different. We'll swag out, you know, the rest of the school year. And it kind of caught on. And while that was happening, you know, I said, well, let me buy some real estate. So I bought the .com, the .org. I got all the social media just because I might do something with it later. Yeah. That was 2010. Wasn't until 2013 I actually formed a 501, you know, a nonprofit organization to actually do the work of mentoring.
Yeah.
So I started with 7 young men. I just put out feelers. I don't even know how I did it. It wasn't flyers. I think I made it put a couple things on social media. And it was 7 young men that I called them the first 7. And they started with me just like, look, we're going to do some mentoring stuff, some character development, and we're going to visit some colleges. And that's how we started.
So how did the name come about? Because I remember you telling a story about how you guys wore ties on Friday.
Yeah. So initially, like I said, it started with that, the guys are wearing just to swag out different 2010. And that's where the name Friday is Tie Day came from. And it just stuck because it was catchy.
Yeah, make a theme out of it.
Yeah, so we do way more than just wear, like, to be honest, very few of the guys we have in the program now wear ties every Friday. Like, but they do. Like, it's funny when they do, they just, like, got the ties on, they post their pictures on social media. It's dope. But that's, like, that's just, like, a thing now. You know what I mean? It's like a flag. It's like a tag. But beyond that, we have a focus now on post-secondary success. So what happens in your life after high school? So we set goals around that. It's going to be college, it's going to be trade, it's going to be military. And we're going to work towards it in the best way possible. We're going to put you in a position to be successful. So we're going to give you the things you need, like SAT prep, college exposure, campus tours, skill building, help you even to develop entrepreneurial skills so you can create streams of income for yourself to be successful, whether you do that or not. That's where we are now. And it's turned into, like, it's turned into something just really dope, bigger than I ever expected.
Yeah. How do you, like, so even speaking about the post-secondary opportunities, so we know that for many it's like, okay, we want to direct them to college, right? We want that's the idea, post-secondary idea to go to. But I mean, you have students who are like, hey, I want to start my own business. Like, do you connect them with resources? How exactly does that work? How do you paint that picture for them?
Yeah, so the entrepreneurial attitude has always been there from the beginning of Friday's Tie Day. So our first fundraisers were, I took a 1930s Hartman wardrobe trunk, and I refurbished it, repainted, put some stickers on it, some different things, and created in ways so that we can sell bow ties and neckties, pocket squares, cufflinks. We created a mobile haberdashery. So the guys were learning how to operate and run that from the jump. Okay. So we'd be invited to events or just set up in restaurants, and they would do that. So they would run the point of sale system and all that stuff. They would do the pitching and the selling and the upselling. We would teach them that. If they buy a tie, we got a pocket square to match. Don't let them leave without the pocket square, right? Don't let them leave without the cufflinks, the whole thing. So they were taught those skills, and that was our biggest fundraiser early on. Like, that's what we did. And it was real natural. It was real, like, it wasn't like it was an extra thing. It was like part of who we are, right? So we've always had the idea of building what a common phrase for it now is like social enterprise around our work so that we can generate revenue to sustain the work that we do. And we've had a couple different, things. The haberdashery is something that's always been there. We need to kind of like 2.0 it, re-up it right now. We did some online e-commerce for a while. So, we would go through things like picking out the ties we wanted to sell, the guys picking the names, how we're going to market them, take the pictures, how we're going to put them out there. So they learn those skills initially to where we're becoming a little more sophisticated in looking at using technology and mobile applications to reach more people and to have teach them those skills within tech, like coding, design, new media, using social platforms and everything else.
Oh, yeah. Wow. So you tapped into something a second ago. You said in the beginning, a lot of the entrepreneurial things, you were like, that was there. And with you said that was just who we are. Like, that's who we are. So there's a term that, well, not even a term. I mean, there's the word culture, but I have a marketing background. So there's like the marketing guru, Seth Godin, and he talks about culture is basically, and you boil it down, is people like us do things like this, right? And then it seems as if you come from a very strong culture, but it's interesting because it's not like your family, you guys were outliers in your community and the way that you guys really did think or live by, it takes a village to raise a child. So if you were to, I guess, boil down like the ethos or the culture of your program and what the students would say about it. It's like if you say like people like us do things like this. I boil it down like to Nike, right?
Yeah.
I used to look at Nike as just do it, meaning as like a command. And then once I started thinking of like, oh, people like us do things like this, it's like, oh no, just do it. It's like people like us, we just do it. We don't make excuses. We don't hesitate. We don't complain. We grind and we just do it. So what would kind of be the ethos for Friday is Tie Day and what you want the students, the boys, to walk away with, where they'll be like, oh, outside of the tagline, just like guys like us, we kind of like a way to live by a code. You know what I mean?
Wow. So I would think, all right, like the cliche one is Black excellence.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know, my mom's gonna hear this, but like I think like the everyday one would be like we do dope shit. Like I think that's like that would be like kind of like colloquial, but we don't settle. Right, we continue to push, right, and I think resilience, perseverance would be things. I have guys in the group who didn't have like that charted path. Like they may have started in college, messed up, they're back home trying to figure out how to do community college now to get back to college. They're working but they don't quit.
There it is.
They don't quit, right? So I would say the resilience, and we're going to have a lot of guys that graduate in 4 years and do that. We're going to have guys that graduate much longer, right? But they're persistent.
Yep. And
they're still, and if one thing doesn't work, like Edmonds, I'm looking at this trade opportunity. Let me see, what kind of trade schools, what this? I'm like, so I'm answering, 22 years old, 21 years old. We're still at it.
Good.
Because that's always been the focus, right? To have that end goal in sight, and it never changed.
Nice. Right.
So how we get there may change, but we're still invested in the end result.
And so this isn't the program that young men can age out of, essentially.
I don't think that ever happens with mentoring, right? Because that's what we are, essentially a mentoring program. So when we mentor for life. I've been in weddings, and last year, unfortunately, did my first eulogy, for one of my first kids I mentored. So it's for life.
Yeah. Wow.
I got a bunch of sons and nephews.
I
got 3 daughters in my house, but I got a bunch of sons and
how's
nephews.
that balance? I know you have 3 daughters. So how is it like dealing with these young men and going home and then dealing with these young women? It's gotta be
It's totally different. It's totally different. I don't know. You just find it.
Yeah.
You remember what's first, right?
Yeah.
You remember what's first. I have an amazing wife, right? So not only is she like crazy committed to me as her husband, but she's crazy committed to our family as a mother, right? So she's like a mother lion, right? She will kill you, right, if you mess with her family. However, she's also a high school guidance counselor. So she very much understands the work that I do with these young men. So she's very much a part of that as well.
Yeah.
She's a true partner in everything I do. So I know for a fact I couldn't do what I do with another mate. Like, it's just not possible.
Got you.
It's not possible.
That's awesome.
Got you. Well, talk a little bit about the programming. Like, what do you guys kind of institute? Like, how do you get these men from, okay, you're in high school, let's start thinking about that post-secondary. Like,
Got you.
What do you do any, like, what happens? What takes place?
So we do monthly meetings, right? Monthly meetings typically happen on the first Sunday of the month.
Okay.
And we meet at 4 p.m. at a local restaurant. I'm going to give them a shout out and a plug because they've been there since day one. Cousin Mario's in Mays Landing, New Jersey. Great pizza, great wings, great Italian food, right? But they've been there for us since day one. So we meet from 4 to 5 p.m. Whatever our topic, our discussion is, our guest speaker, like it'll be life skills, just development. It might be just a current event we need to talk through, right? That's from 4 to 5. Then from 5 to 6, we have pizza and wings, and I check in. How you doing? Where are you with this? How's everything going? And we just fellowship, right? So that format, like, we can't shake it. Like, it's so much ingrained to, like, it's not a lot of pressure for a new kid or for a kid that's trying to come in. They love the pizza and wings. You know what I mean? We never order enough. We can never order too much, right? It's just how it is with teenagers. So that's kind of like our ongoing every month that happens, right? And then you'll have, like, opportunities to engage and activate. So on MLK Day, we did a service project, where we worked with a Turning Point Day Center for Homeless, and we put together over 100 blessing bags. And then we also did some work in the center to help set up their computer lab, help sort some of the donated clothes and things like that. Then there'll be other opportunities to do a bunch of different things, right? So we actually had an opportunity to go to a Flyers game this year. We got tickets donated by Gru's Crew, and we had box seats and everything. So we had the buffet, the whole nine. So that was an opportunity that was given to the guys that had the top 10 GPAs, right?
Nice.
So it was a reward for the guys with the top 10 GPA. We set goals, each year for GPA. So last year, the goal for our 40 guys in the program that are like really committed and always there was to have a group average GPA of a 3.0.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so they hit a 3.17 last year. So as a result, I had to do like a death nut challenge, which was torture. It's like 6 progressively hot nuts that you have to eat up to like 19 million Scovilles. It was crazy.
First of all, he Facebook Live.
Yeah, I did. Facebook Live it too. Like myself like dying, like live on Facebook.
He was like, listen.
Everything. It was everything. It was bad,
Crazy.
but they earned it, right?
Up for like a couple days.
So this year, we raised the GPA to a 3.25.
Okay.
Right. So
And that's collective of all the
collective
40.
of all 40,
Okay.
right? So we're really close right now. We're really close. I think
What's
I
the
have
challenge this time?
the challenge this time is a paintball firing squad.
Against you?
Basically,
Wait, so
I stand on a wall.
So what's going on? Are we really like we created like say this?
That's what I'm thinking.
They
Like
like
they
to
want to
see
torture
pain.
me. They like to see me in pain.
you in pain?
So see, the secret to this is though, like they're gonna be pretty far away, right?
Yeah.
It ain't gonna be like
How
15
far?
feet. I don't know, far as I can get them. Right?
Keep going.
So,
Keep going.
like I'm gonna see a line of like 35 guys with paintball guns. I'm like, yeah, I need to back up someone. Yeah, I'm standing
You
there.
gonna have protection on?
I'm gonna have protection, but not like crazy protection. I ain't no sucker, you know what I mean?
Wow.
But I protect things that need to be protected,
I'll pull up. I'll record it.
and we G up. You know what I mean? That's just the way we do. But yeah. So that was a challenge. That's what they wanted, and they're like really really close right now.
Are you nervous?
Yeah, because honestly, the last time I was in, like, actually, I'm going to release what the GPA is this coming Friday, right?
Yeah.
So the last time I was in with the submitted grades, they were like at like a 3.24 and change. They were like right there.
He's probably like,
So we got 3 more in report cards that came in a little later that were all really good. So I feel like
You
they-
better not
they
be
might
praying
go
on their
over.
downfall.
oh, I am. Yo, so last time, right? The goal was a 3.0. They had a 2.94. So I was like, ain't doing it.
Yeah.
Ain't doing it. The goal's a 3.0. So then they got that 3.17, so it was over. So I had to do it. But yeah, I'm hoping they stay around that 3.24 so we can like push it back to the next report cards. It's bad to do it in the winter with the paintballs when it's cold too. You know what I mean? Yeah, when it's cold. Yeah, so I want to do it in the spring when it's at least a little warmer. But if they earn it, they earn it, and that's what we do. And so we do stuff like that, right? We make it fun. It's not just like, where are your report cards? Why aren't you succeeding?
Yeah,
Right? Like
yeah.
it's fun.
Because
Like
there's so many reasons why students aren't succeeding.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
It's a lot.
And it was so funny because that meeting where I did do live, like there were kids taking the bus to see me torture myself to meeting. Like they didn't have rides, they took public transportation
motivation.
and walked the rest of the way to get to the meeting. So I'm like, so not only do we have a group of 40 young black men who were excited about turning in their grades, right? But excited about getting to the meeting. Whether it's because I had to make a fool of myself or not, I really don't care.
Yeah.
But what we're doing is we're shifting the mentality around. Like, listen, excellence is the expectation, and we're going to push towards it no matter what.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like, the type of things we do. And then the big thing that we do, we have 2 really big activation events too. One is for the community and one is for the guys, right? So the one for the community, we this year it'll be on March 3rd. We do an annual tie ceremony and college decision day.
Yeah.
So we do custom ties with our logo. So all the guys that are
Nice.
participating in the program, they show up in their white shirts and they get their ties. We do a ceremony. We have men from the community show up and they come down and it's like a sign of submitting to men. My mentorship where they help them tie their ties, right? And then all our seniors announce their decision for after high school, whether it's college, trade, or military. Last year we had all 3, right? And they get to make speeches. They get to be recognized because most of the time those type of things are exclusive to superstar athletes, right? And they get to take their hat out. I'll be going to university, play lots of football, right?
Yeah.
And but we do it with all of our young men. Everybody gets that honor for their family and their parents to celebrate, for them to thank their mom and whoever else they want to thank, on the microphone. So that's like a real big community activation. It's a wonderful event. And then the big piece that the kids love the most is we do an overnight trip each summer. So we travel upstate New York, D.C. area, North Carolina, Virginia.
Yeah.
We do 3-4 days where we do college visits, we do some service projects, we do some educational, we learn, and we spend time doing leadership development, each night. So this year we're headed down to Atlanta, GA,
Hey.
where we'll visit Morehouse, Georgia Tech, Emory, and Clark, Atlanta. So we're excited about this summer. It's the furthest we've gone.
Nice.
But
you take a bus, right?
we're taking a nice, charter coach bus, and we'll probably
That's
lay over
Lord.
in North Carolina.
Okay.
We have some really cool friends in the Raleigh-Durham area,
Nice.
and then we'll probably lay over there, probably grab something to eat and fellowship with another mentoring program, and then finish the rest of the trip the next morning.
Sounds good.
So that's the program, like, in a nutshell.
Yeah.
But it's also, one-to-one opportunities where I'll have guys over the house. We'll be doing, applications. We do scholarship boot camps with the seniors. Sometimes it's just for dinner because they need to talk about something. Yeah. So there's lots of those type of interaction with either one or a few of them.
Yeah.
To where we just keep the mentoring going.
Is that something I think a lot of people who have the support at home take for granted at times of the simple process of applying for college or knowing what your options are going through. It's hard. Like my he'll be 20 in July. So it made my head spin doing it again with him, where I was just like, sheesh, I remember this. And I remember not having the guidance, where I just had my limited options and I went with that, right? But wow, so this is really, really important work of making young people or having them think about what's next. Because, the truth is, I think with young people, it's almost like a switch. Yeah. People expect that 18, you're supposed to know certain things, be grown enough because you're so-called graduated, or like, oh, why don't you know this? What aren't they teaching you in school? And it's like, the truth is, there's a huge gap of things that are taught in school where you literally are making them make huge decisions. When before they're always told that you're not adult enough to do X, Y, Z, exactly. And now they're making some of the biggest decisions.
And
in their
now
life.
Sign this loan for $50,000 a year to go to college.
Exactly.
Right? At this big such and such university.
Yep.
Like
make a decision on where you're going to live independently.
Yeah, and what career is going to drive the rest of your life.
Yeah.
At 18.
Yep.
Right. So which is insane, and even the student loan crisis that we have. I couldn't take an 18-year-old to get a $50,000 loan to start a business
at all,
but we could easily do it to go to college to create like that, right? Not to create like an independent stream for themselves, right?
Yeah.
So just that thought process alone is like crazy.
Yeah,
crazy, right? Like. It's part of the trap. So I run into a lot of guys, a lot of kids that are like, college is a scam. I'm like, if you don't do it right, it is, right? If you're going to do it that route, it certainly is.
Yeah.
But we can do it smart, so let's work together to make sure it gets done the right way. And the other thing I would say with our group is we have a nice mixed group, right? So we have kids that don't have the type of support they would like to, and we have those that have everybody in the home. But the parents is like, yo, it's just great to have another voice in the air because they are tired of listening to us, right?
Yeah.
So when they hear it from Mr. Edmonds, it's like, oh, okay, I guess it is real, right?
Do you have a lot of creative kids in your program who they may or may not think college,
Oh, yeah. I got a bunch of rappers and beat makers, too. We got all of that, right?
Yeah.
So it's funny because even with that, right, I like just fortunate in my life that I was able to mentor like a couple guys when they were young. They weren't part of Friday is Titled because this is before Friday is Titled, but they're like both Grammy-winning and Grammy-nominated artists at this point. Mm-hmm. So they look right at them and like, oh...
Wait.
What? Who am I talking?
Yeah, what we talk about? You want to name names?
Yeah, I can drop names. It's the homie, DJ Camper, right?
Okay.
So he's worked with like a full list of people, and then Ronnie Colson, aka Flipper. They were like both in the same class in high school that I worked at.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And so like we honored DJ. So at our tie ceremony, we give role model awards to people in the community that these guys can look up to. You know what I mean? So we bring in, educators, pastors, musicians, artists, like the whole nine, colonels in the military, just as role models, right? So DJ was one of those guys this year, 1 year. So it's like, yeah, DJ's there. And then literally the next Grammy, he's on stage for R&B Album of the Year with her, right?
Nice.
So they can see that. They was like, yeah, we making music too. I'm like, it's not that easy, right? You can touch people. And that's what I want you to do. I want you to see, touch, and see people that have done it that are like you, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
But also it's not that easy, right?
Yeah, and there's career paths for that as well,
It's different.
Sound recording. Like my son, he's in sound recording and music tech program community, and just building. Really, we just like, look, do that, do your 2 years, and he's transferring hopefully into NYU, Clive Davis Institute of Recorded Music.
That's
So
awesome.
it's just like get the prereqs out the way,
Yeah.
so we don't gotta pay or gotta figure
Exactly.
that out. You know
Like,
what I mean?
Do college smart, right?
Yeah,
Instead of
do it
paying all that
smart.
NYU money for 4 years, right?
Exactly.
It's just
You know,
crazy.
it's
Still-
like
still the
figure
same
that out
paper at
because
the
he
end.
ain't had the great grades to get that,
That-
free NYU experience. So that's why I was like,
and the
whoa,
free NYU experience is rare too.
super
Very
rare.
rare.
Yeah.
So-
Very rare.
Yeah.
But it's like you have that, right? Those you're trying to keep them on a plan. But then, like, again, I go back to DJ. Like, he was getting placements at 16 while he was in high school, right?
Yeah.
So it was going to happen. He just needed to free up enough time. So he just had to graduate and get to work. You know what I mean? But
Exactly.
and he has an
And
incredible
it's
amount of
getting that
talent.
10,000 hours because I'm sure
Yep.
because every time and it's like because being like outliers and like what you're it's almost like you were uniquely raised to be able to see what mentorship is about
Exactly.
and what a community is about. I was reading the book Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers.
Outliers, yeah,
And it's
10,000
like,
hours.
yeah, from looking at 10,000 hours or even just people who live longer with no other help benefits other than a really strong community around them.
Yeah.
Where community really can help you stay strong, healthy, and everything else. And you've like built a community around it. But yeah, he probably just had his 10,000 hours so much earlier. Every time I see a successful actor who's young, I always look and they started like as a child model at 3 or at 11. And you know, you just
They
start
perfect their craft
early.
early.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You get that 10,000 hours.
It's funny. You talk about the 10,000 hours and kind of like the unique setting that I was raised in. For a time, I thought that was almost like a deficit. Because I'm working with a lot of young men. Like, I'll never forget, I was working at school in Atlantic City. This was a while back, and we were in the middle of a conference, and we were coming out. So I'm talking to the young man I have with me, and he was like, "But you're not real, Edmonds." I'm like, "What do you mean?" Like, he's like, "But you're not real." He's like, "We don't see men like you. We don't see
wow.
those that are going to college come back and that are working. Like, it's not real." The reality, you know, and he's like, I was like, "So I'm like a unicorn?" He was like, "Yeah, basically."
Wow.
So it kind of like threw me at that point, was like, well, am I even qualified to do this work? And for some kids, they need to identify in that way. But I always, as I grew in this and I learned, I was like, yeah, I'm uniquely qualified because I've been there,
Yeah,
done
you've
that.
lived the experience.
And I've lived it, and I know what it is.
Yeah.
Like,
and
I know
you
what
know,
it is.
also is sometimes like people can talk to their blue in the face about the strength of having a good father at home, but it's like you need to see it in action. You need to see someone who is the result of having a strong, amazing father, and then you're like, wow, this person is like a unicorn. And if I could replicate that,
Yeah.
but I could use that as a blueprint, right? You know,
Yeah, and that's what we're doing on Friday, Saturday, man. We're building like an army, right? Army of dopeness. You know,
Yeah.
these young men that like we're going to persevere, they're going to press, and that are going to come back and give to the next generation.
Absolutely.
So that's where we are now, which is really dope. Actually, you know, they're not on camera, or you know, you can't see them. But I have two young men with me that were part of that first 7.
Yeah.
So, you know, so one, Kevin, is a college graduate. He recently graduated from Rowan University last May, and then we have Dante, who is a senior.
I got some good people who teach at Rowan. Yeah.
Okay,
They
so
have a
then-
really good music program.
Yeah, they have pretty
They
dope
do.
music
Yeah.
program there. So we have, and then Dante, he's a senior right now, electrical engineering major at University of Pennsylvania.
Nice.
So they both were football players, you know what I mean? So, like, we were meeting earlier tonight talking about kind of how they're going to come back and give to that next group of young guys, right?
Absolutely.
Because I'm getting older every year, like, you know, less hair now. You know, that was in
Yeah.
2020. I took the top off the Maybach for 2020
Hey, listen.
because it was thinning. So I was like, I ain't going to let me look foolish. You know what I mean? People talking
Hey.
about me. So I took that joint off. Just made the hairline disappear totally, right? And then I got more grays coming in. So it's gonna be a point where Mr. Edmonds is too old, right? I'm not just gonna be like an OG. I'm gonna be an elder,
Yeah.
right?
So people won't necessarily see you as relatable, or they'll think you're too far from their culture
Exactly.
where they stand right now.
So it comes like when I started, I was 27 when I started in the school. Actually, I was younger when I started in the elementary and middle school. So it was different. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah. So I'm getting to that age now where I'll be, you know, further away from it, but I have the experience and expertise of all these years of working in the sector. So I can continue to build an organization now that's going to be sustainable and thriving.
Let me transition a little bit to this. So, being the fact that we are disruptors in the culture, one of the things that we always like to do and challenge is see like how do you define that? How do you define yourself making a disruption in the culture that you're affecting right now?
Okay, so one of my ultimate goals would be a reach for like anyone that understands education. There's a common phrase that's used, and there's been different names given to it, but you understand the achievement gap, right?
Yes.
So in the schools where we operate, every public school in that area pretty much has a double-digit achievement gap.
Yeah.
When it comes to those big indicators, whether it's high school assessments, SATs. I mean, young men of color have a double-digit deficit behind, their counterparts. Yeah. So my disruptor, like what I'm doing is like, nah, that won't exist. Like we're gonna make sure that access gap, or what do they call it, the opportunity gap? They've given a lot of names other than achievement gap to put a different spin on it. Yeah. But we're gonna eliminate that, right? Not just for the young men I work with, but for that whole region. Yeah. Right? Because these young men that we're giving skills are hopefully going to go back into the high schools that they're in and affect those environments. And we're still, growing that kind of mass so that we can have that kind of impact, that critical mass to have that impact. But that's disruption number one. Like things like the achievement gap don't exist. Yeah. And I think it has to come from the community.
Always.
Right?
Always.
I mean, schools are too big and too slow to make change. And a lot of them are even unequipped to make the change. Right, they don't have the people in the places with the expertise and skills, the people that look like our young men, to get these things done.
That is true.
So, also, we can't expect other people to give our children what we're supposed to give them. Right, they're not supposed to raise our children or anything. Like it needs to come from the village, it needs to come from the community. So it might not be the same village I have, but we're creating a different one, right? Yeah. And we're going to wrap our arms around these kids. So we're going to disrupt those communities to where, like, we got this, we got us.
Yeah.
Right. They're going to come to your schools and do what they need to do, but we got us. Yeah. Don't worry about you having to feel guilty because you're not doing it. We got it.
Absolutely.
I've always been that way. I don't want to wait for somebody else to teach my guys, my kids. I got them.
Exactly.
I got them. Right. And that's so we disrupt in that way. And the dopeness is that when they come back and it's like, they're owning homes, running businesses, and they can call shots. You know what I mean? They have agency. They have a voice to speak up for themselves at an early age.
Okay.
You know what I mean? That's the disruptor.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's one fantastic. I mean, I think that's more than what we kind of expected and thought. So, even with that, where can we, for the people who are listening, where can they find out more? Where can they look for you? Where can they find
where can you donate? Yeah, I got you.
Where
So
can you donate? It's an amazing program.
That's always big. Listen, that's always a plug for a nonprofit, right? But we're everywhere. So you can find us at FridayIsTieDay.com. That's our website. Websites have become
Friday is
Tie Day. TIE Day. At .com, and that's really just kind of like a brochure, right? Like websites for most people are kind of like not where you see the action. Because we operate in a new media world with young people, you'll find us on all social media. So we're on Instagram, Friday is Tie Day, Facebook, Friday is Tie Day. That's where your mamas and your aunties like to go on Facebook, right? We're on Twitter. We even on Snapchat. I don't know how to snap or chat, but we on there, right? So we're on all those things. We about to get a TikTok, and I'm gonna be dancing on that joint. I'll be messing with y'all. We gonna be TikTok. But I like to mess with the kids.
And are you interested?
I got your snap book. Nah,
I know. I'm on the face.
I'm on the face champ.
Faster.
Yeah, Faceagram.
Instagram.
As far as in other organizations that may want to partner with you, are there meaningful ways that you're looking, like that you're like already seeking, that like in your wish list where you're like, boy, it would be great to partner with this type of organization, like a wish list?
That'd be amazing. So we've got this great group of young men that are coming out with their skill set who's going to be kind of like that next generation of partners. But I know one of the things that I've seen, we would love a mental health partner, right?
It's very important. Very, very important.
And a mental health partner that has men of color.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Hopefully young enough men of color to come and be that resource.
Yeah.
For our young men. I see it more and more each year. And we experience trauma like everyone else. Some deeper than others. You know what I mean? Loss of loved ones, trauma from different experiences, trauma from what it's like to be an other in communities, right?
Yes.
So whether it's active acts of racism or even perceived racism, it still impacts us like trauma, right?
Yeah, small microaggressions.
And things,
like I tell people all the time, I have this thing when I walk in the stores, I'm always wary of my hands. Of where are my hands? If I'm holding merchandise, I can't put my hands in my pocket. No. Little things like that where you're just like, I'm perceived to be a thief.
My daughter had that experience for the first time last year.
Wow.
She was at the house, and her and my wife were like, doing their prepping and hair. She realized she was short some products.
Yeah.
For her hair, right? So she throws on a hoodie, sweats. They run out to the store. And my daughter was just like, she was followed in every aisle she was in. And she was just like really shocked by that. And it like really, and then it made her angry because she had never experienced that. Yeah. But I'm like,
it happens. Yeah. It definitely happens.
Yeah. It's like all those ways that we are, we're always worried about the white gaze because it can really endanger our freedom.
Yeah,
you know,
or how we're perceived, or just a lot of the young men, a lot of the young men that I work with is kind of like, I'm more than just an athlete too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not just your buck. Right. Yeah. I have value outside of what I can do with the basketball or football.
Yes.
And I have a voice, and I want to have agency outside of that as well. So how do we empower them to have that voice?
And like I live probably 9 times out of 10, most people we see, not even 9 times, 99 times out of 100, a person lives a life that's so far from who they are in your imagination. Mm-hmm. And it's sad because our boys are always seen as the same. Or you want to be a rapper, huh? And you're like, what? Like, so.
They don't even know the whole story.
At all. Exactly. And it's like, well, maybe I want to be a rapper too, and so it's kind of like that thing that we are, like you said, othered, and the pattern matching that people just put on, like, oh, I've seen your type before.
Yeah. So, and we have those guys in our group that aren't athletes that are like far from it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like just giving them their voice and their agency to be whoever they want to be and express that in its fullness without fear of repercussion. Right?
Carefree black boys.
Yeah, right. And it's just to be able to do that in the world, like, is huge for us. So, and then there's just regular life stuff, right? Mm-hmm. I'm a teenager and I'm struggling with this, relationships, parents. So it's just all the other stuff that we got to deal with, right? So I really would love to have a partner. I really would love to have so we have like a group of adult men that work with us that serve as, mentors. So there's like a group of about 5 or 6 committed men. Yeah. And then we have our older guys that are coming back and doing their part. I would love for one of those men in the near future to be a mental health professional. That'd be awesome, amazing. And then a couple $100,000 would be like the next big ask, right? but we get there. We build something for that, so we'll get there.
Sure. So I know for now, I know we do got to wrap up and get out of here because we get on a little overtime. But we could talk about this forever. Honestly, there's so many avenues that we still haven't even explored. Yeah. When it comes to why, for what reasons, and how Fridays can really implement and affect more than just your community, but be transferred to different locations and affect their community as well. Yeah, 2020 is a year of expansion, right? So we're looking to grow, work into other schools. We are primarily a high school program as it exists now. Okay. This year we are stepping out. We have some middle schools in the queue to step into middle schools. So this is a year of expansion for us. We're looking for schools that already have some resources in place, right? So that we can come in and bring what we've learned, our expertise, to kind of shape, something new there in that building. So it is a year of expansion for us, and we're looking for schools and people that are not afraid to be disruptors. So please, if you have information, you want to help out, find out, you can get more information or anything, always contact FridaysTidy.com. FridaysTidy.com. Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok, whatever you can get us on. Make sure you reach out. But we just thank you. Just find the logo. Yeah, the Fridays Tidy. Coming on the podcast. You're our first guest. I mean, it's always good to be first. You're our first guest. We like that. Right? This is a really, really important organization. Yeah, so. And the important work. It's hugely important work. Yes, it is. And it's like we're just scratching at what we're going to be. I'm really happy because I will say this before, like I'm a boy mom because it's like I have brothers growing up, I have my son, all his friends. So I am always worried about, the state of our young men and how the world treats them because everybody's figuring it out. We're all trying to find our way. I don't care if you're black, you're white, you're Asian, doesn't matter. We're all trying to figure it out, especially at a young age. Yeah. So as a mother, you're like how the world treats them, but they're trying to even figure out how they fit into that, right? And it's 100%. That's a crazy place for all adolescents, but especially for young men of color. Yeah, right? I told my son all the time. I said when he was 17, I said 17 is hard for everyone, or he'll say I feel this way, and I would say we all do. Like, you might think you invented this feeling, but you didn't. Ain't nothing new and we're all insecure, and it's always hard for all of us, and it's going to be hard for a while, and it's confusing, know. So this is really highly important work that you're doing. Thank you. Right, it's a labor of love. It definitely is a labor of love. So with that, we are signing out. Look out for us on our next episode of Disruptors in the Culture. Adios, y'all.